Hello film lovers, this time we will tell you a film called John Wick. John Wick Chapter 1 is a film that tells about the revenge of a former reliable assassin who has just lost his beloved wife. This film, starring the famous actor Keanu Reeves, combines the epic action thriller genre, so it's a shame you don't want to miss it. John Wick Chapter 1 is a film directed by Kat Stahelski, which first premiered at Fantastic Fest on September 19, 2014. The film was then released in the United States commercially on October 24, 2014. At the beginning of the film, our main character named John is seen getting out of the car holding his stomach. At that time he also kept looking at the video of a woman who was his wife. The scene then rewinds a few days before that night. John is seen living alone in a huge house. That day John went to the hospital to see his wife one last time. He was forced to let the doctor let go of the tools that his wife used to survive. After that, on the day of his wife's funeral, John met his professional colleague named Marcus, when he had not yet retired as a hitman. Long story short, at night, John received a package that had been ordered by his wife before he died. His wife gave him a dog called Daisy and a letter saying that he hoped the dog could be his successor. John began to get used to living with Daisy. One day, John and Daisy went to refuel their Mustang. Upon arrival, John immediately filled his car with gas. Not long after, the son of a Russian mafia named Losev also arrived at that place. He was interested in John's car and immediately offered to buy it, but John refused the offer. John then went to the airport. When he wanted to enter, the gatekeeper seemed to have recognized John and immediately let him in even though John didn't say anything. At night John was sleeping, curious about his dog's behavior. He then followed his dog. When they arrived at the living room, they saw three masked men beating John. They intend to take John's Mustang. The three people turned out to be people he met at a gas station. They beat John and his dog to a pulp. John and Daisy lay covered in blood. John finally wakes up the next morning, but Daisy is dead. Daisy made John think back to his wife, and it made him very angry. On the other hand, a Russian mobster named Losev stole John's cargoes to Aurelio's repair shop. Aurelio looks so surprised to see the car, and it turns out he recognizes the car. Not long after that, John was seen arriving at the place. Here we know that John is a very feared person. That night, Aurelio received a call from Love's father, Vigo. He asked why Aurelio dared to hit his son. When he heard the reason, Vigo immediately silenced 1,000 languages. It seemed like he already knew that big trouble was coming. After that, he then called Joseph. Without further ado, Vigo immediately landed a few punches that made the Losev fall. Vigo then said what caused him to be so angry. He says if it wasn't his actions that made Vigo angry, but to whom did he do it? Love then said that he stole a car from nobody. Vigo explains who John is. He used to work with John, and people called him Baba Yaga. He said that John once killed 3 people with just a pencil, but eventually, he retired because he was getting married. Meanwhile, John was seen digging in the basement of his house. It turned out that there he kept all his weapons and gold coins. Shortly after, Vigo called John and apologized for what had happened to him. John, without a word, then hung up the phone from Vigo. In the evening, Virgo then sent his troops to kill John. But John easily managed to kill 3 of Vigo's men. One more and without a fight, which means John defeated all of Vigo's men. Not long after and just finished dealing with Vigo's men, suddenly the police came to his house. The police who had looked into the house could only be silent. He seemed to already know who John was. He asked if John was back at work, but he said that he was just finishing. The police problem finally left John. After that, John's friend named Charlie and his men came to John's house. They then wrapped all the bodies in plastic while Virgo, who knew about his men, was not surprised. It seemed he already knew that his men couldn't kill John because of that. Decided to give a reward of $2 million to anyone who killed John. As well as meeting in person with John's friend named Marcus, offering him a job. Short story. John goes to a hotel called the Continental, a place used by people like John to gather people who have gold coins or people in the same profession as John or people who work under the rules of the Continental. In the evening, when John was in the hotel, he then went the downstairs, which was not all people can enter there. He met a man named Winston, who is the owner of the hotel John asked about LoSave, but before telling him Winston asked John, he reminded John it would be difficult if he wanted to go out again, so think carefully. He also reminded of the rules that apply in that place. If anyone violates will be punished very severely. John then received information where LoSave was hiding. He was in a place called Red Circle on the other side of Vigo. Who heard the news if John was on the Continental, told the assassins that he would give double the reward if anyone dared to violate the rules of the Continental, which is not allowed to kill in that place. Short story. Go he to a place called Red Circle, arriving there and following your friend Save, who just arrived. A big guard can only be silent when John is pointing a gun. They seem very afraid of John. Then he goes into that place. He then kills your friend Save, which at that time went with him. After getting LoSave location information, you go to that place. He kills the guards without making a sound. But when John is watching LoSave from afar, a guard gets it so easily John can beat the guard. But the fight makes a sound that makes people know John's location. From here epic action shootout begins. In the midst of the crowd of people who were cool to sway John chasing LoSave, who ran away. The guards who blocked him were also killed by John. Like playing a game, John shot all of LoSave's guards so easily. But John has shot 2 bullets in the chest, but luckily the vest he was wearing managed to save him a fight. Then continued. John was hit by a bottle stab in the stomach. He almost lost and fell from the 2nd floor, but luckily he survived and managed to leave that place. Meanwhile, LoSave also managed to escape from John. Long story short, John finally returned to his hotel room. He was also a doctor to treat him. On the other hand, Marcus started doing his job. He could shoot John an inch, but at the same time, he saw a woman named Perkins enter the room. It made him accidentally shoot a miss to make John wake up. Long story short, the woman didn't manage to kill John and Marcus also left that place. The next day, John received information from Perkins that he went to a place called Little Russia, where Vigo kept all his treasures as well as the church as a cover. Arriving there, it didn't take long for John to shoot all of Vigo's men who were there. After that, he also burned all of Vigo's money. Not long ago, when Vigo was scolding his men, John suddenly shot at them easily and killed several of Vigo's men. Until suddenly, a subordinate who was driving a car hit John and made him bounce. Long story short, John was finally brought by Vigo to his place and told him that humans don't change. Only time changes, and also looks very angry because the place that John burned contains things that invaluable to him, but John just said that he really enjoyed it. At the same time, Vigo mentions his late wife. John initially agrees with what Virgo said, but John becomes impassioned when Vigo says about the dog Daisy. Vigo asks John to stop chasing LoSave just because of a dog. Then suddenly Marcus shot one of Vigo's men. John, who was tied up, in trouble facing another of Vigo's men. But in the end John managed to strangle and kill him. John went back to chasing Vigo and his men. Long story short, he managed to paralyze Vigo. Vigo, who was cornered, was forced to only obey John and tell him where LoSave was hiding. John asked Vigo to withdraw the contract he made so that John wouldn't chase him anymore. Finally, John arrived at the location where he was hiding. I saved and managed to paralyze the sniper guarding LoSave. Then he shot LoSave's friend who was playing a game and also shot the other subordinates. LoSave was trying to escape. Intend to use the car, but before they arrive, John managed to detonate their car at that place. John managed to incapacitate LoSave's guards again, and the moment came when John was dealing with LoSave. Not long after, John shot him in the stomach and right in the head on the other side. Vigo didn't stop there. He again prepared his action to kill John. Long story short, John, who just managed to get his revenge back to the hotel when he wanted to go home, the hotel compensated a car for the incident with Perkins not long ago. John met with Marcus to thank him. After that he also said that he would retire soon, but without they realized. Perkins saw their conversation. He then reported Marcus to Virgo. Sure enough, that night Virgo and his men had gathered at Marcus' house. They beat Marcus and until Marcus finally struggled and made Virgo shoot him. That night Winston and members of the Continental caught Perkins. They caught him because it has violated the rules on the Continental is Kill in a prohibited area. John is at Marcus's house, then receives at the location where the whereabouts from Winston not long ago. John finally chased Vigo. John managed to stop Vigo and his men, but suddenly Virgo with a damaged car hit John and almost fell, but lucky John managed to jump and survived. Then Virgo challenged John not to use any weapons until a fistfight between them finally occurred. But in the middle of the fistfight, Virgo took out John's knife and got several stabs in his stomach, but finally he managed to grab Vigo's knife and finally stabbed him in the middle of the night. Raining. John continued to hold his stomach, and then the scene moved back to like in the beginning of the film. There John woke up and went straight into the medicine store. He also found some dogs which he then brought home. A black dog. John finally returned home with the dog. And that's the root of the John Wick movie Chapter 1. What do you think? For me, this movie is really very exciting. Please subscribe so you don't miss the latest content from us. See you.